Hollywood's golden age wasn't just about glitz, elegance, and silver screen magic. Beneath the shimmering gowns and studio lights, the stars of that era lived under an iron rule. Perfection was mandatory at any cost. The cameras might have shown beauty, youth, and charm, but behind closed doors, these same icons endured bizarre diets, dangerous beauty rituals, and obsessive habits that bordered on self-destruction. What today would be called exploitation or even abuse was then just studio discipline. And what's most haunting is how many of these practices became fatal. That if this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. 1. Jean Harlow, the deadly platinum obsession. Jean Harlow was Hollywood's original blonde bombshell, but her trademark look came with a terrifying cost to achieve that ethereal platinum hue. Her stylist mixed a lethal cocktail, ammonia, bleach, and peroxide. Applied directly to her scalp, the chemical burns left her with blisters and open sores. Her hair began falling out in clumps, and she wore wigs to hide the damage, but the illusion of perfection had to be maintained. Harlow's devotion to beauty didn't end there. To keep her porcelain glow, she avoided sunlight entirely and used skin-whitening powders that contained bismuth and lead. Combined with her habit of constant crash dieting, these toxins contributed to severe kidney problems. By the time she was 26, her body had begun to fail. On screen, she was a goddess. Off-screen, she was a casualty of Hollywood's chemical alchemy, a platinum star consumed by her own light. 2. Clark Gable, the man who stank of fame. Clark Gable was the definition of rugged charm, but few fans knew that his leading ladies dreaded love scenes with him. The reason? His teeth. Early dental surgery left Gable with severe gum disease, forcing him to wear false teeth that constantly rotted and emitted a foul odor. His co-stars, including Vivien Leigh, reportedly begged directors to shorten their kissing scenes. To mask the stench, Gable became obsessed with chewing tobacco and heavy colognes, an ironic combination that only made matters worse. Yet his magnetism on screen remained untouchable. The studios called it charisma. His co-stars called it torture. 3. Joan Crawford, the cleanliness crusader. Joan Crawford didn't just clean, she purified. Her home was reportedly so spotless that guests felt afraid to sit down. She disinfected her hands between every handshake, scoured her floors with alcohol, and bathed multiple times daily. Her obsession extended to her beauty rituals. Each night, Crawford soaked her face in boiling water, then plunged it into ice to shock the skin into tightness. Dermatologists today would call it a recipe for broken capillaries. Crawford called it discipline. Her refrigerators were filled not with food, but with skincare, cold creams, tonics, and jars of Vaseline she believed sealed youth. Behind her glamorous image lay a woman terrified of imperfection and trapped in a lifelong war against dirt, time, and mortality itself. 4. Judy Garland, the studio's chemical experiment. Few Hollywood stories are as tragic as Judy Garland's. MGM signed her as a teenager and immediately put her on a cocktail of amphetamines to keep her awake and barbiturates to make her sleep. She was a controlled experiment in human stamina. Her calorie intake was restricted to black coffee, chicken soup, and cigarettes. The studio executives monitored her weight daily. Even ounces gained could lead to punishment. By her 20s, Garland was physically dependent on the drugs that had built her career. Her body, her sleep, and even her laughter were dictated by studio prescription bottles. She became both a miracle of movie magic and a prisoner of her own legend. 5. Errol Flynn, the pirate with a bottle and a vein. Errol Flynn lived as wildly as the characters he played. His charm and recklessness made him a symbol of masculine adventure, but his habits were pure destruction. Flynn believed blood transfusions from younger men would restore his virility and youth. He called it his energy therapy. Friends said it was just another excuse for decadence. His daily routine was a storm of whiskey, morphine, and raw meat diets inspired by early bodybuilding fads. Flynn once claimed he hadn't been sober in 15 years, and his liver agreed. When he died at just 50, the autopsy found the body of a man 20 years older. The swashbuckling hero had lived like a candle burning from both ends. 6. Marilyn Monroe, champagne dreams, sleeping pills, and bizarre rituals. Marilyn Monroe's beauty seemed effortless, but it was engineered with obsessive precision. She began each morning with a raw egg and milk protein shake, a concoction she claimed was perfect for the skin. At night, she took warm milk baths spiked with champagne, convinced it softened her skin. She often slept enveloped in her favorite Chanel perfume, saying scent was part of her identity. But her most haunting ritual was solitude. She couldn't fall asleep without the radio playing softly beside her bed, convinced silence made her feel invisible. The woman the world adored, most couldn't stand to be alone with her own thoughts. 7. Howard Hughes, the germophobic tycoon. Howard Hughes was not a movie star, but his influence over Hollywood's leading men and women was immense. His habits bordered on madness. He isolated himself for months, storing urine in bottles and refusing physical contact with anyone. He used tissues to touch doorknobs, utensils, and even telephones. When he did interact with actresses, he required medical tests to confirm they were clean. The once brilliant producer who built aviation empires and film studios became consumed by microscopic enemies only he could see. 8. Greta Garbo, the woman who vanished. Greta Garbo was the definition of mystery, and she maintained it by avoiding the world entirely. She believed interaction drained her life force. She followed a diet of raw vegetables, fruit juice, and nothing cooked after sunset. Garbo reportedly fasted for days to purify her soul, meditated for hours, and refused mirrors that didn't show her in dim light. Her seclusion wasn't just privacy, it was ritual. By the end of her life, the most photographed woman in the world refused to be photographed at all. 9. Marlene Dietrich, the iron perfectionist. Marlene Dietrich's beauty routine was like a military operation. She shaved her hairline to create a higher forehead, taped her face before filming, and had molars removed to sharpen her cheekbones. Before long shoots, she injected herself with vitamin cocktails and adrenaline shots for stamina. Dietrich also carried her own lighting equipment to every set to control her image precisely. She once said, "I am not beautiful. I make myself beautiful." And she did through sheer force of will and a willingness to endure pain for perfection. 10. Cary Grant, the gentleman on LSD. Cary Grant, the suave icon of sophistication, had a secret side. During the 1950s, he participated in over 100 LSD therapy sessions. Legally at the time, Grant believed psychedelics unlocked creativity and banished insecurity. He described them as a miracle for understanding myself. But his fascination with self-reinvention mirrored Hollywood's larger obsession, the constant rebuilding of identity. Beneath the tuxedo and the grin, even Cary Grant was searching for who he really was. 11. Betty Davis, the nicotine diet. Betty Davis was a force of nature, fierce, brilliant, and chain-smoking. Her habit wasn't just addiction, it was strategy. She called cigarettes her appetite controller. During filming, she reportedly smoked up to 100 cigarettes a day to maintain her sharp cheekbones and signature rasp. Combined with coffee and little else, it created the gaunt, intense look she was famous for. But it also destroyed her health. In later interviews, Davis confessed, "I wanted control over my image. The cigarettes gave me that illusion until they took everything else." 12. Charlie Chaplin, the tyrant's control. The lovable tramp on screen was a perfectionist tyrant behind the camera. Chaplin demanded retakes that lasted for weeks, sometimes forcing actors to cry for real by berating them mid-scene. He practiced calorie restriction, convinced that hunger kept the mind sharp, and ate only fruit, coffee, and toast during shooting schedules. Chaplin once said, "Discomfort sharpens genius." For him, artistry required suffering, both his and everyone else's. 13. Carole Lombard, the raw beef ritual. Carole Lombard's youthful glow came from a practice that sounds grotesque today: She placed slices of raw beef on her face between scenes. She believed the iron and blood stimulated skin rejuvenation. Crew members recalled her joking, "If men can eat it, my skin can drink it." Medical experts later noted the obvious dangers of infection, but in the 1930s, Hollywood lore often outweighed logic. Lombard's beauty was undeniable, but her methods were as risky as they were strange. 14. Mae West, Youth by Force of Will. Mae West was in her 70s when she still played sex symbols, and she insisted her body obey her. She followed an all-fruit diet, practiced isometrics for hours daily, and refused to admit her age to anyone. She wore corsets so tight they reshaped her ribs and claimed she hadn't eaten meat in 40 years because animals slow the blood. West turned aging into an act of defiance. Her body was her brand, and she maintained it with iron discipline. Proof that the Golden Age never really let its stars stop performing. Individually, these stories sound eccentric. Collectively, they expose a system that demanded control over image, weight, skin, and even private life. Studios treated stars as property. Executives dictated diets, surgeries, even sleep schedules. Actors were marketed as immortals, so they tried to live that way through chemicals, starvation, and rituals meant to outweigh time. The irony is painful. The same industry that made these stars gods also destroyed their humanity. Their habits weren't just personal quirks, they were desperate responses to an impossible standard. The Golden Age promised perfection, but delivered tragedy. Beneath every dazzling close-up lay someone terrified of imperfection, someone told that beauty was worth dying for. And for many of them, it was. When we look back at old Hollywood, we often marvel at its elegance. But maybe the Real story isn't about beauty at all, it's about sacrifice. These stars weren't just actors, they were pioneers of self-transformation, inventing the modern idea of celebrity long before social media. But the cost was staggering. The next time you see those radiant faces flicker on screen, remember, what looked like glamour was often pain disguised as perfection, and the price of fame in the Golden Age was nothing less than the human body itself.